Reflect Afrique viewers, this is the 7 p.m. newscast. Here follows the headline. Ate Bazangong has defeated his opponent Jean-Pierre Essome with a 254 votes against 185 in becoming the president of the autos rights company Sonacam. This was after Saturday's Executive General Assembly vote, and he goes down in history as the first ever Anglophone to hold the position. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune says he's recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic he contracted from members of his government since October, and Cameroonian-born Issa Hayatou and former president of the Confederation of the African Football Championship (CAF) has been granted the status of honorary president of the institution. Meanwhile, the CAF has published the calendar for the CHAN football games this 2021. These headlines and more will be developed in this edition. Stay tuned. Good evening once more. Ate Bazangong has been elected as the new president of the autos rights company Sonacam. He beat his rival Jean-Pierre Essome with a 254 votes against 185. Two other contestants for the top job, Messi Ambroise and the commonly called Wax Day, scored 85 and 69 respectively. After beating competition from Jean-Pierre Essome and Wax Day to head Sonacam, Ate Bazon now replaces Sam Fan Thomas with the following as his management team. Prince Ndedi Eyango was elected as the chairman of the Supervisory Commission, and Moaha Mate, popularly known as Dinali, is the current head of the Ethics, Discipline and Arbitration. The president of Identification, Admission and Classification Commission was handed to Louis Decoum, while DJ Dileko went home as president of the Program Control Commission, Online Music and Distribution. The two traditional authorities of Mile 15 Bokova and 16 Bolifamba in the southwest region have been released after the death of their peer Fon Emmanuel Ikome of the Mile 14 Dibanda, who was abducted alongside with them on December 13th by gunmen. More details coming up next in this report. Barely a week after the holding of first ever regional elections in Cameroon, traditional authorities who took part in these elections are faced with insecurity, even though the government promised them security. On December 13, 2020, the funds of Mile 14, 15 and 16 in the restive southwest region were abducted by yet-to-be-identified gunmen, even though locals say they were taken by separatist fighters. Few hours after the abduction, the corpse of Fon Emmanuel Ikome of Mile 14 Dibanda chiefdom was found in the bushes. It is 4:59 p.m. The atmosphere in the Dibanda, Bokova and Bolofamba neighborhood is tense. Locals say it is an abominable act for a Fon to be kidnapped, killed and his corpse abandoned in the bushes. Traditional authorities have been reduced to a subject of ridicule as their abduction and perpetual murder has become a daily job. On Saturday, December 12, 2020, His Royal Highness Fon Viof Nelson Shite, the Fon of Kijum Ketunga, popularly called Sumo Babanki, was kidnapped and his whereabouts still remains unknown. The kidnaps comes barely a month after the Fon Omso, Fon Sem Binglo, was kidnapped by men who identified themselves as separatist fighters. On November 6, 2020, the traditional ruler of Liula Malale, His Majesty Molinga Francis Nango, was murdered by unidentified gunmen at his palace, and it is noted to be the second traditional ruler that has been murdered with the wake of the crisis in the English-speaking regions, the first being Chief Bandan J. Williams of Lisoka Mulewe village. Many are questioning the role of traditional authorities in politics. Many are seeking to know if the killing will end the political upheavals. Many are asking where the respect of tradition and its authorities have gone to, but the question, however, remains unanswered. Celestin Jammeh has resigned from his political offspring, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, earlier today in a press conference in Douala, chief town of the Littoral region, Monday, December 14, 2020. The politician states reasons for his resignation. I stand for a change of the regime through ballot boxes and not arms. That is how it is done in a republic. I disagree with the politics of absentia. The one-time militant of the Social Democratic Front Party fails to state clearly if the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party is seeking to get to power with the use of arms. After militating in the party for 2 years, 4 months, Celestine Germain regrets that Professor Maurice Kamto decided to let the party boycott the February 2020 municipal and legislative elections in Cameroon without consulting key members of the party. Before Maurice Kamto announced that the party was boycotting the elections, we had done groundwork convincing Cameroonians to vote for the party. This is one of the key reasons why I am quitting the party, he stated. And in Central African Republic, incumbent Touadéra holds first presidential campaign rally on Thursday. Ex-President Francois Bozizé candidacy in the forthcoming election marks Faustin Archange Touadéra's bid for a second term at the helm of the deeply troubled nation. The following report, compiled by Sandrine Doumbé, has the details.
The ruling was handed down by the Constitutional Court, which barred Bozizé on the grounds that he was being sought for alleged murder and torture and was under UN sanctions. It also rejected 4 other bids for the December 27 vote, leaving a field of 17 candidates now dominated by Touadéra. A former 5-star General Bozizé, 74, has played a major part in Central African Republic's decades-long troubles, and some have feared he could try to stage a violent comeback. He seized power in 2003 before being overthrown a decade later by Seleka, a rebel coalition drawn largely from the Muslim minority. The 2013 coup sparked brutal violence between the Seleka and so-called anti-Balaka self-defense forces, mainly Christian and animists. France intervened militarily in its former colony to push out the Seleka, winding down the operation after Touadéra was elected in 2016 following a transition. After spending years in exile, Bozizé slipped back into Central African Republic in late 2019 and filled his candidacy in July. Touadéra, 63, has been widely criticized for failing to root out corruption, but the barring of Bozizé means he is now the clear front-runner in the elections. The other candidates include former Prime Minister Anissé Georges Dologuele and Martin Zingele, as well as Catherine Samba Penza, who was president during the Central African Republic's 2014-2016 transition, but none has much support outside their local strongholds. Touadéra was elected in February 2016 with 2/3 of the vote, but the struggle to stem vicious intercommunal strife in the country while militia groups control most of the territory. A peace accord signed in February 2019 between the government and 14 armed groups had led to lower level of violence, although it remains fixed. Thousands of people have died and nearly a quarter of the population of 4.7 million have fled their homes. The United Nations have deployed one of its biggest peacekeeping forces in Central African Republic, a mission with a mandate for 11,650 troops.
Algerian's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune is recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic he contracted since mid-October from some members of his government. Tebboune appeared in public for the first time in over 2 months since his isolation and hospitalization on October 24, 2020. More details in this report. It was on national television that Abdelmadjid Tebboune reappeared for the first time after having been in contact with various officials of his government contaminated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Last October 24th, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune had voluntarily decided to go into isolation, after which the Algerians were able to contact for themselves that their president has recovered after 2 months of absence due to his hospitalization in Germany, where he was receiving treatment. Admitted 4 days after his contamination in one of the largest specialized establishments in Germany, the absence of the head of state plunged Algeria back to the humiliation pangs of the end of the reign of his predecessor Abdelaziz Bouteflika by a stroke in 2013, which he had nevertheless decided to continue to assume the presidential office before being ousted from power in April 2019 by the protest movement of the Iraq. Despite this time of absence, Abdelmadjid Alhaji Tebboune still holds the reins of the state but has not been able to exercise any of his prerogatives for his last 2 months, such as the promulgation of the new constitution, the flagship project of his electoral program, the signing of the 2021 finance law. I am recovering. It will take another 2 or 3 weeks for me to regain my physical strength, declared the Algerian president, visibly thinner, in a speech to the people delivered the day after the first anniversary of his electoral victory. While his prolonged absence had fueled rumors and disinformation, the head of state promised to be back among Algerians as soon as possible. In this speech on his Twitter account relayed by public television, it should be remembered that the last public appearance of President Tebboune dated back to October 15 when he met the French Minister of Foreign Affairs Jean-Yves Le Drian. And in sports, Cameroon-born Issa Hayatou and the former president of the Confederation of the African Football Championship, CAF, has been granted the status of honorary president of the institution. The decision suggested by CAF's Executive Committee, which met Thursday, December 10, 2020, via a video conference, was adopted during the organization's 42nd General Assembly. And on December 11, according to the Executive Committee, this status is to acknowledge the great strides made by Issa Hayatou towards developing African football. This distinguished leader presided over by CAF for over 30 years, from 1987 to 2017, and this honor salutes his immense role in the development of African football. After having been at the head of the African football governing body for 30 years, the Cameroonian-born was beaten during the 2017 election by the institution's former boss, Ahmad Ahmad, who has been suspended by FIFA over corruption charges. And the Executive Committee that met on Thursday equally noted with satisfaction that Cameroon's readiness to host the upcoming African Cup of Nations Football Championship, while the Confederation of the African Football CAF has published the calendar for CHAN football games for the 2021 season. For Group A, Cameroon will take on Zimbabwe on January 16, 2021 at 5 p.m. at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium in Yaoundé. And before we leave you, we are just receiving the information about the head of state, President Paul Biya, has created a new state corporation known as the National Mining Corporation, as SONAMIN. Tomorrow we will be bringing the details of this story. And this is the end of the edition of the English Newscast. Ladies and gentlemen, we leave you in the company of Le Journal de 20h avec Thierry Nyopé. Stay tuned and see you tomorrow at exactly midday. Have a blessed evening.